That meanwhile, the people were allowed to go out to take lunch. But because the people had no reserved seats, they never did it. So inside here there were always a lot of vendors selling refreshments like in our stadiums. And even the Romans already had a sort of energetic drink which was sold in here to help the people to stand the long hours of the games. This energetic drink was named Posca. Posca was made out with water, honey. I remind you, Romans didn't know the sugar yet. Some drops of vinegar, acid, so the people didn't get too much thirsty, and a lot of black pepper. You know, the Romans were sure that the black pepper was very energetic. And in fact, they used to give a lot of black pepper also to the gladiators for this reason. And then in the drink sold to the crowd. Plus, inside here, there were also fountains, like pipes, all along the walls. This way the people could take free water along the games. Then in the afternoon, there were the gladiators. For first, all the gladiators had to come up to the arena to take a walk around to be seen by the emperor or by the crowd, like in a parade. And a lot of the gladiators used to wave at the crowd this way. The horizontal thumb means gladiators fighting to the first blood. It means that once that gladiator got hurted, first blood flowing out of his body, or he was simply defeated, the combat was automatically over. So nobody was supposed to die in that game. And that's why there was the emergency below the arena for those gladiators. And outside of the Colosseum, that direction, there was also the Saniarium, the hospital for the gladiators, the best hospital of Rome. Only few of them had to wave at the crowd this way. And these narrow fingers were the gladiators who had to fight to the death, the real risky game. But who were those gladiators? A lot of them clearly were slaves. I just told you that the Romans had a lot of slaves who were prisoners of war and criminals. In the ancient city of Rome, almost all the crimes were punished by slavery, not by jail. So very soon the Romans gave the slaves the opportunity to take any kind of job. This way the slave could earn money to give to the owner to buy back freedom. And the Roman owner could get out of his slaves, free labor or money. For the slaves, fighting on the arenas was the most honorable and a very quick way to take freedom back. That's why a lot of slaves wanted to fight on the arenas. They choose it. But even a lot of freemen, including some nobles, wanted to fight on this arena. And the freemen did it for money and fame. In fact, you see, the games in Rome lasted about 7 centuries, throughout which games and rules have been changed. Basically, at the very beginning, this gladiatorial combat was almost a religious ceremony. In the imperial age, a regular show for the crowd. But for instance, in the 3rd century AD, which is the golden age for the games on the arena, if the gladiator was a slave, fighting 15 times to the first blood, he could take his freedom back. Fighting 3 times only to the death, he could take his freedom back. You see, that's why a lot of slaves took the risk and they fought to the death. If the gladiator was a free man, he got paid for the games. For the combat to the first blood, he was given 2 up to 5,000 euros, nowadays value. For the combat to the death, 10 times more. But we also know about gladiators who were really beloved by the crowd. For instance, at those days, there was Serpenius, that you can see represented in a lot of mosaics. Serpenius is a nickname given by the crowd to him. It means the snake, serpent. Serpenius once was given 110,000 euros for one combat only. And don't forget that the combat lasted about 15 minutes. Plus, I remind you that at those days the economical system was different. So this same amount of money at those days was much more valuable than today. So you see, in the end, those gladiators were beloved by the crowd, represented on the mosaics that the wealthy people had at home. They could earn a lot of money. They were quite successful people, at least very similar to our sportsmen, like football players, soccer players, wrestlers. That's why a lot of people wanted to fight on the arenas, especially the ones coming from the low class. For them, this was the only opportunity to try and change completely their own lives, and that's why they did it. But you see, in order to fight on this arena, all the gladiators had to take a training in one of the schools of the empire. The training lasted 2 years, along which the gladiator got paid. He was given a salary which was even better than the salary of a soldier. But to enter the school, all of them had to sign a contract. Sacramentum gladiatoris, the gladiator's oath. Few lines. It was written that he accepted to be put in jail, to be beaten by wood, to be killed by sword or fire. Signing the contract, he could start the training. Training, I know it looks like a cruel contract, but it was especially designed for the freemen, so that in case of an accidental death along the training, or in case they had to punish the man putting him in jail, the school could discharge any responsibility. That's why the contract. And you see, training was 9 hours of practice per day. They were given a special equipment much heavier than the regular one to develop muscles, and of course only wooden weapons in order to avoid accidental killings. Beside the training, a very special diet. The gladiators for breakfast were given a soup made out of wheat. For lunch, beans. For dinner, roasted meat and red wine to drink. And we know that in the winter time, the gladiators love to add some honey to the wine to make it much more energetic. And they used to call that drink mulsum, wine plus honey. Now, as you can see, this is not really a very balanced diet, but it was perfect for the gladiators, who also needed to develop a layer of fat on their bodies in order to keep safe the muscles from the superficial wounds of the swords. So you see, those gladiators were not like our bodybuilders. The gladiators had muscles and a thick layer of fat like a natural armor. And you can see it in the mosaics. And that's why this diet. Then, at the end of the training, the first public game. Those who could survive the first game, they were automatically professionals. The professionals could fight at